welcome to Master Muse, Sara Syms. We had to hit the restart button. Welcome to being human.
Thank you for letting me be here. It's great to be here.
Okay, y'all, I'm going to tattle on myself and say I didn't hit record. So we've actually been talking for 25 minutes. We're already friends. We've already shared a lot of information. We're going to go back. We're going to maybe say it the same way or a little bit different. It's going to be fine. This is just all about being human. And I've learned a lot about Sara, but you're going to learn some more stuff about Sara. Are you guys ready? Okay, let's begin. Let's start at the very beginning again and again.
Yes.
You started playing the piano at 5 and the violin. Tell me about your relationship with music and how and why you started.
Yeah, so I feel like I've always said before that I think I came out of the womb singing, whether it's past lives or not. Like singing is something that it just feels like breathing to me, and music was always in our household. For some reason, I really, really wanted to play the piano. Maybe my mom had like a friend that had an older daughter that maybe played piano, but I really wanted to get into piano. So my mom found a piano instructor, and her husband also taught violin. So it was kind of a one-stop shop, and we would go there and I would have my piano lesson and my violin lesson. And so I really, really enjoyed it. I think that 5 is a great age because I think you definitely can't start too much earlier than that. I was a piano teacher in high school, and my aunt and uncle really wanted me to teach my little cousin, and we tried at like 3, and that was no bueno. Like
only imagine their hands are so tiny.
But they also their ability to focus is very little.
Zero.
It's 0. Yeah, they're bouncing off the wall. So I was like, let's just let's try 5, and then we did 5, and that seemed to work. So
okay, so you as a 5-year-old, you were the good student.
I was the good student. Yes, I was a very studious little pianist. I don't think I have it anymore. I feel like I have relative pitch, but when I was a child, I had perfect pitch, and like we would sit at the piano.
It didn't go anywhere.
I don't know. I don't think it went anywhere. But I do think that you can kind of lose the perfectness of it. Like, so relative pitch is basically if I sang like a C and it was maybe a C sharp. So, but when I was a kid, it was like, it was foolproof. There's so many things that we have. We're so in tune as children. And we lose all that through the fog of adulthood.
And I feel like we spend the rest of our lives trying to find that space again where we're less afraid.
Oh, totally.
More willing to try, where we're stripping back to just like, let me go bach to the basics. Let me go back to like how I was as a kid before the whole world told me how I was supposed to be.
And there's so much research, and there's so much truth to the fact that almost all creations, whether it's poetry, music, acting, like it comes from a place of your inner child. Magic and art comes from your inner child. And I find it fascinating, not so much when you're kids, but when you're like, a tween and a teenager, you want so bad just to be an adult and to be grown up. And when you're an adult, all you want is to be able to go back to that time of,
no responsibility,
wild and free. If you wanted to be a fairy when you grew up, like you were able to do that. There was no one telling you that's stupid, that's silly, we can't be fairies. So yeah, I think that, getting back to that inner child in whatever capacity of our lives that is, whether it's creating or just, being able to live a more fulfilled life is really important to tap into our inner child. So, but I was like a weird like adult little child. Like I was very.
And I was going to say something about that because I have 4 children, but my 3rd daughter is, I don't want to say she's a perfectionist, because that scares me a little.
Me could.
But she likes things a certain way, and she wants everybody to follow the rules. And if only everybody would, what a beautiful world we'd all be living in.
Yes.
And whatever you give her to do, it is done, and it is done quickly. And my praise for her is like golden diamonds. For
Yes.
me to say, wow, honey, that's so good. Her face is like, I
Yeah.
did it. Oh, and it's a lot of responsibility for me, because I'm like, I don't want her to feel that my opinion is the most important opinion,
Yeah.
because she's got to care about what she does. Um, but man, she is really focused in on making mom and dad
It's
really, really proud.
it's hard. I mean, I was definitely a professional perfectionist. I wanted so bad to make them happy, especially my mom. I really, really wanted her approval. I think that, a lot. So I played piano, I played violin. I was also in a world renowned children's choir from about the age of 8 till, let's say, 13. And that was amazing because you learn at a very early age, like the art of choral music and classical music and singing in all these different languages. And we got to travel around the world. I got to go to like Poland and Finland and Czechoslovakia when I was like 10. And just,
And what
the,
did
the
you think about travel at that point in time? Like, what did you think about going? Do you remember thinking, oh, this looks different than home? Or
I,
were the people
you
different? Or
know,
you were so busy doing the task?
I feel like um I was very busy doing the task, but I don't know. I feel like, whether people believe in past lives or not. I mean, I never used to until like somewhat recently, but I feel like everything just made sense to me. Like, we were in Poland and they had just gotten their freedom, like, a couple months prior to that. And we sang this song of freedom in their native tongue, and like the whole like church that we were singing in, everyone was crying and holding hands and swaying, and it was just like for a 10 or 11-year old to like experience that, it but it just made sense to me. Like
Wow.
I don't know. So I've never really understood um the struggle that we have as humanity, the racism, the classism, like I just it's never affected
It's
me.
weird, isn't it?
But it has my family, and so I just feel like this weird
Mhm.
little, like, I don't know. I mean, it always just seemed normal to me, and so I think the traveling was just very cool because I love to sing and I loved this choir, and it was just such a rush, and I loved performing. And we talked about a little bit. You had asked me if I get nervous, or if I've ever
Mhm.
like gotten nervous,
Mhm.
being in front of these big crowds, and I feel like it's something that just I was destined to do. Like I really do enjoy performing. There's no rush like it. And um I feel like one of the biggest, I mean, I had a solo at Carnegie Hall when I was 11 years old, with this choir, and that was amazing. That's probably the biggest audience that I've ever like sang or played to. But I don't know. I really, really do love performing, and there are so many people in music that like are the exact opposite. Even if they are big
Mm.
stars and they play to, sold out stadiums, like there's a lot of anxiety, and I get anxiety over a lot of other things, but definitely not being in the limelight, or being that performer. Like
Is
it like
there a calm that overtakes you in those moments, or how would you describe the
yes.
feeling?
Yes, so I think that when I play music, to this day, if I'm singing, if I'm playing piano, if I'm playing guitar, if I'm whatever it is, um, it is it is an almost like an out of body experience. It feels like a warm blanket. It feels like I am transcending whatever space I was in at the moment.
Feels like
Like
a different world.
music is really healing. I mean, I could be having an anxiety. I mean, I have struggled a lot with depression and anxiety and panic attacks, and it's almost like a program in the Matrix where you sit down at the piano and it's like you're being locked into the back of your head, and it's just this wave of calm that like comes over. And it doesn't always have to be calm. It can be, really angsty too.
Mm-hmm.
Like it can, what's so great about music, it has the ability to meet you where you're at. So like sometimes if you're like really like struggling and you're pissed, and you don't necessarily want to listen to something like really nice and calming. Like I want to punch that in the face. I want to listen to some ragey
It's
stuff.
like, I can't listen to this. This is too nice.
Yes, and I want it to meet me where I'm at, and then I get to like pull down. But I would say I've had moments on stage where I had to like pull myself back into my body, because I like look out into the audience and I'm like, oh, I'm at a gig. Like, I mean, and there's no drugs involved. There's no alcohol.
Which I love. I mean, and I feel like for a lot of people, that is the beauty and the magic of music.
Yes.
It's like whether you play an instrument, I mean, you have the benefit. I play the piano. I probably don't play anywhere near as well as you do, but I do play the piano, and me sitting down and being able to do that for myself. Am I going to have everybody's in the house and everybody's making noise, and I've had a long day at work, and I'm like, please don't talk to me for a second. And I turn it,
Yes.
I have a electric piano.
Yeah.
Digital piano?
Yep.
Electric piano? Okay, whatever. Yep. Anyway, and I sit down, and it 2 or 3 minutes in.
Yeah.
And I can't hear them. They're still making noise.
Yeah.
They're still running around, but I can't hear them anymore. And then after 10 or 15 or 20 minutes, no matter what it is that I play or do, I'm like, okay. But yes. I think that for people who don't play instruments, it's like, it's either your favorite artist, or it is the playlist that you've created for, you've got your angsty playlist.
Yeah.
You've got your I'm super sad and I need to cry playlist.
Yes. Yes.
Like, it's why I want to talk to every musician and every person related to the music industry, is I want to show other people, there's a way to do this, whether it's writing it or performing it, or you're the light tech and you get to listen to everything that everybody does, but you're creating this visual experience for people.
Even if you claim that you're not a musician or you don't sing, everyone sings in the shower. I'm sorry, but you do. Like, and maybe there's some people that like refuse to, but like, even if you hum, if you can talk, then you have the ability to sing. Right. Now, there's also people where you can take lessons to, learn how to sing better. There's no way that some people are ever going to be Mariah Carey or, right. Vanessa Williams or whatever it is. But like, you can definitely learn to hold a note. But even the act of humming or making a sound, like, it is healing. We are energy. It is energy. It's frequency.
Letting it vibrate through your body.
Yeah. And, there's also amazing things on YouTube, like sound frequency. So it's like all of these different frequencies that are set without getting too woo woo. We are an energetic body filled with chakras, which are energy centers. And so it starts with your root chakra and it goes to your second and your third and your heart and then your throat. And so they basically go up in tone. And so there are certain frequency numbers that pair with those energy centers of your body. And you can just look up on YouTube, like frequency healing for pain, frequency healing for grief, frequency. I mean, there are even some frequencies that they will play in the operating room because they help with cell regeneration and DNA. And like, the surgeon is also utilizing that while he's doing his magic. I mean, my dog, I have a long dog, like he's a beagle and a dachshund mix. And when he always
really throws, a long dog.
He's a long dog, and long dogs have issues with their back or their neck or whatever. Like he stands in first position feet and he's always tweaking his back. And there was one time where it was like a good month that he was out. And I was like, it was just such a scene. Like I'm sitting next to him and I'm rubbing the essential oils on him and I'm playing special frequency music for him and like crying. But like I think it helps. And so there's just so many amazing things. Like there are also sound baths, which are these like Tibetan
Oh, why do you do
crystal
that?
bowls. And if you like, a lot of yoga studios will have them. If you can do this in person, you can listen online too. But a sound bath is basically a mix of a bunch of different metal or crystal bowls and then gongs and
Yeah.
bells and like all these
Yeah.
things. And it's literally like it's a wash of vibration and sound over
Yeah.
your
Oh, I
entire
need
body,
that.
and there is no feeling like it. So if you
I
out
need to do
there
that.
have no idea what a sound bath is, Google it, go to YouTube, look at sound bath. I would recommend all of these things, whether it's frequency music, sound bath stuff that you listen with headphones, because
Yeah.
it's more intimate. It gets more into, the
What's
deeper
the
part.
thing that goes back and forth, that slides back and forth between the
Oh yeah. So those are binaural beats that just
oh
kind of
my
like,
God.
yeah,
I mean, I could feel it. It touches my tailbone and does something with my
yes.
toes and twitches my hands, and I'm like, and I
Yeah.
get stuck. I
It's
mean, I could
it's
just sit
it's
there
pretty
for
amazing.
I
Yeah.
it blows
There's
my
a
mind.
there's a song that is it's called Weightless, and it was designed many years ago. It was a team of musicians and also doctors, sound healers, psychiatrists, psychologists, and it's claimed or deemed as like the most calm song that's out there, but it helps with like regulating heartbeat, with anxiety, and again, to each their own. Like we all respond differently to different tunes, but as someone that has suffered a lot with depression and anxiety, specifically anxiety and panic attacks, that song called Weightless, which is by Marconi Union, it is,
Okay,
and
how do we spell that?
so it's Weightless,
Uh-huh.
and then the
Marconi.
artist is Marconi, Marconi,
Okay.
and then it's Union, Union.
All right, I just want to make sure that everybody can find that. Can you remember an artist or bands or songs from that middle school, high school part of your life that helped you
Yes,
or spoke to you, and who and what was that?
yes. So my mom, she was a folk singer growing up. She didn't play a lot of, she sang, she loved to sing. She was always in church choirs and singing was her thing. But she was very adamant on building me specifically a female music collection that started in like middle school and high school of all female artists. Her favorite artist was Judy Collins, and she loved like Eva Cassidy and Joni Mitchell and all of the like great folk singers. But this collection that she was making for me was filled with artists like Tori Amos, Sarah McLachlan, um, oh my God, like why am I blanking? Like basically all of just like the great, artists that were in like the 90s, 80s and
Alanis?
90s. Alanis Morissette. My mom tended to be more on like the softer side, like the
Okay,
Amy
Alanis may
Mann,
be a
like
little too hard for
the,
mom.
the Lilith. I
Jagged
mean,
Little Pill, she's like, no.
I loved Alanis Morissette, and I'm also like a big 90s whore. Like I love all music, but 90s music, I'm a little bit of a junkie. I love
It was a good
all.
time, if
It
I do
was a
say
good
so
time, and
myself.
it's my decade. Like I was
Yeah,
born in '78, so like the
yeah,
'90s were definitely, that was
76.
that was what I was in middle school and high
Yeah.
school and college. Like the '90s were it. So, and I grew up in Chicago, and in the suburbs of Chicago, I've probably seen Smashing Pumpkins like 20 or 30 times. Like Smashing Pumpkins, I loved. um, Nine Inch Nails. I mean, but specifically as far as influential artists, Sarah McLachlan to this day remains an artist that is so important and so special to me, because my mom and I shared it. And when she
Mm.
passed away when I was 19 in college, that I just remember her coming like a few months before she passed away, and coming to, my apartment that I was living in off campus. And we were just sitting on my bed, like listening to Sarah McLachlan. And it was just something we like so intimately shared together that at her funeral, like I played just all the Sarah McLachlan CDs in the background. I think I even sang a Sarah McLachlan song.
You were able to
Sarah,
sing at your mother's funeral.
I did. I sang at my mom's funeral. I don't know how that was possible, but I
Wow.
did. And my piano professor, or my piano teacher, like my high school piano teacher, middle school and high school, she played for the whole like funeral. And it was really hard for her because I remember like looking over and she was just trying so hard to like not break
Keep it
down.
together for you
Yeah.
so that you could keep it together. We're all
Yeah,
holding it
totally. So,
together.
but Sarah recently, it was like the 30-year Fumbling Towards Ecstasy tour that she was on tour this summer, and my partner and I like went, and she came to the Nashville. So I'm in Nashville. She came to Ascend Amphitheater, which is outside, and man, I on all my social platforms I did Sarah McLachlan week, like all leading up. I mean, Sarah McLachlan really, and she went away for a little bit for me, just because that was kind of like, I don't know, what I was into in high school and
Hmm.
college, but then, but never gone. But every time I hear Sarah, I mean, it's like it's an instant connection to my mom. So
Does
I
it
even
feel
wanted
good
to,
now?
it feels really good. I even wanted to, I applied to be on the MTV Fanatic show for her. I never got picked, which is stupid, MTV, but um but I really, really, I mean, it was like right after she passed away, and I was like, Sarah, I am your biggest fan because blah blah blah, and my mom introduced me to you, and it's something we so intimately shared, and it was just really, really cool and really special. And she was just, the summer talking about, she has two daughters, and she was talking about the oldest one that I think is in her like early to mid 20s, and just talking about their relationship and their struggle and how they're very similar. And it was really beautiful to hear her like talking about motherhood and just how much that ties in with me and my mom and that music. So
Another
Sarah
angle of
McLachlan
how
all the way.
music uh, ties it all together. It really is magic.
Yeah.
So after your mom passed, you said that she had a chronic illness, a chronic illness that ultimately led to her passing, and that there was some secrecy. And I wonder, we were about to get into when the walls came down, because you said, at first we power through. You were
Yeah.
in school. You could tell me about the synchronized figure skating.
Yes. So in tandem to music, I also was a figure skater, and I skated since I was little. I did singles, I did ice dancing, I did a little bit of pairs, but I also did this thing that most people don't know about called synchronized skating. And I had been going to skating camp. I went to school at Miami University in Oxford, Ohio. So it's right outside of like 20, 30 minutes outside of Cincinnati. And I had known that I was going to go to school there since I was 12 years old because I had gone to skating camp every year. And synchronized skating is something that is very cool to look up and see what it is. But instead of like pairs or ice dancing, where it's like two people, it's a team of 20. And so it is just this amazing, very high speed, very dangerous. There's lots of blades very close together. I've gotten bladed a lot of times. I think I've gotten 4 or 5 concussions over my skating career. It was a varsity sport at Miami. It's also the only university that it is a senior level team. And what that means is that if it ever were to be in the Olympics, senior is the level that is the Olympics. So in gymnastics, when you see, all the gymnasts, they're level 10. That's the highest level. Well, in synchronized skating, senior is the highest level. A lot of colleges since then have had a collegiate division, which is more like, just the JV version of that. But I was very serious about it. I only applied to one college. I went to school to skate. And that was pretty much like set in stone. So I skated through college. After college, I moved to New York City. I studied graphic design and I was a piano performance minor. And it's pretty funny because I think in college the music wasn't so important to me. It was, as far as I love listening to music, I love, singing and this and that, but it was all about skating, and it was all about my major, which is graphic design. And part of the reason why I moved to New York City was that I am a perfectionist and I'm going to do everything to the nines. So um, if I was going to make it in the graphic design world or advertising world, I wanted to either be in the hot spots, either New York, San Francisco, or London. So I ended up in New York, and that is where and so my mom passed away when I was 19, my sophomore year. I moved to New York right after I graduated, and I was very much a scheduled little show pony from morning to night. Like I didn't even watch Saturday morning cartoons. Like everything had to be recorded. I was pretty much just like always on the go. And I loved my mom very much. She did the very best that she could, but I wanted to impress her. And I wanted, it was like the Sarah and Laurel show. Her name was Laurel. And so when my mom passed away, I remember going back for the funeral. I only went home for like 36 hours. And my dad told me, whatever you want to do, whatever you decide to do, if you want to stay home for a semester, if you want to transfer to a school closer, if you want to just quit college altogether, I support you. And I remember looking at him like he was speaking a foreign language and just being like, I've never really had a choice in my life. And not that, my mom wasn't a drill sergeant, but I was very like set in stone. And so I just kept going like a little robot because I didn't know what else to do. And so I emotionally buried the death of my mom for many, many years, all throughout college, definitely moving to New York City, and something like that, like such an important relationship, that a loss like that, like you can only bury it for so long. So I also feel like, as someone that is very, very emotional, I am a Cancer moon, Cancer sun. I'm a double water sign. Like I am as emotional as they come. I wear my heart on my sleeve. I'm very sensitive. I'm very empathic. Like I was very closed off emotionally as a child, and even through high school and college. And I feel like all of that started to melt and unpack. And I think I kind of just I hit a wall. I crashed. Maybe
I
when
mean,
I
why
was
do you think that you were emotionally closed off as a child? Do you feel like that there was no room for that? Or was it
um
discouraged? Or
so it was a little bit discouraged. There are a lot of things that I am a massive advocate for mental health. I have struggled with a lot of trauma and depression, anxiety in my life. I feel like there were reasons, there were early childhood situations where it kind of became, so I was abused sexually when I was 5. And that was,
wow.
and there's a lot more to the story that I'm not going to go into just for family
Right.
protection, but my mom went through some stuff, and um, it was a decision that was made to just help me forget about it and keep
Mm.
me very busy. And just so that there was a very specific reason why I was put on my, kind of regimented thing. And again, parents do the very best they can with what they have, but a lot of that keeping Sarah very busy and putting me on the so to speak hamster wheel was to make that go away. And that's not really how that works.
Yeah, I have not heard that ultimately that works. I know a lot of people try it.
Yes.
I have
I would
certainly
not I
tried to
would
hide
not
my stuff.
recommend it. I would not
Yeah.
recommend it. But I just, I remember I had a big sister that was part of that choir. Her name was Mona, and it was my first real death that I experienced. I was a freshman in high school. She was 19. She died of a very rare form of cancer. Um, and I remember my parents thinking that I was a little bit of a sociopath because I didn't cry at her funeral. I just like didn't really show any emotion. And, thinking back to that now, I'm just like, hmm, like I wonder why that was. But all to say that, I think I was very closed off for a reason. I think it was self-protection. I think, there was just a lot. Kids know things. Kids, are very aware. I was very aware that my mom was sick, but after unpacking it and being in therapy for multi decades, you start to get in touch with what was really happening, and how much kids pick up on. And so I think that, now I'm very grateful because I am very vulnerable with my struggles. I'm very open with my community. I, being now a mental health advocate and a life coach and using my music as sort of a North Star and the center of all of that advocacy and helping for, pushing towards wellness and recovery. I think that it is really important to be vulnerable and share struggles. I never ever want to be, nor would I ever be, because it's just not in the fabric of my DNA. But I never want to be that like guru type person that's up on the hill that's like, I'm up here. And if you want to be up here, then you need to do this, this, and this. Like I've always said, like, we're in this together. This is collective healing. We are all human. Like even the healers need healing. And it's just messy. And part of like what I've learned over the course of and what my albums and what my music have kind of like unraveled or helped me to see is that my album, like, and we that, but like I have an album called The Darkest Light, which is all around the notion that we find our light in our darkness. Like we have to be brave enough to go into the shadows, to go into those hidden parts that we, hide away from the world or we don't take a look at, because there's so much misunderstanding in what our darkness is. And there's just so many gifts that live in there. And through our darkness is where we find the light. And it's really all about the notion of duality and how we cannot have one without the other. So you have all this toxic positivity in this light. You have people, family members, friends that will just bury their head in the sand and pretend like everything's okay. And you know what? Like you can try that for a whole lifetime, but I guarantee you are suffering in silence.
I think
Because
that there's a lot of people who think, especially because of the way that social media is, where we have, a curated highlight reel where we're thinking, well, Sally doesn't suffer with what I suffer through. And maybe Sally has anxiety, but her anxiety is not like mine. And maybe, John has panic attacks, but it's not like my panic attacks. He still goes to work and obviously he's not struggling like I am. I think we're constantly thinking that other people aren't having and we're not having the same experiences, but there's a lot of really similar
yeah,
experiences. And we all just want to be seen and heard and
I love.
loved and want people to understand us as much as we go, I really try to understand other people. Why don't they try to understand me? And how do I understand myself? Why am I doing the things that I'm doing? And I feel like if we don't take the time to go, today I really feel like shit today.
Yeah,
Today I'm not feeling grateful. Like I understand there's hills and valleys and I'm in the valley and I'll get to the top of the hill,
yeah,
but I don't feel really grateful for that today. I'm really actually pissed off about it, and
yeah,
giving yourself permission to be mad. And you said earlier, we were talking about your mom, like how do you be mad at someone who's passed? Like your mother, like how do you go, you know what? I wish that you would have, and you're going, oh, I can't say that because
yeah.
I love her and she did the best. And I was like, you can
Yeah,
be
but I
mad
can. I
and
can be
also love
mad.
her.
because she lied to us,
Yeah.
like, and she did it because she thought she was protecting us. But sometimes, we get to have all of the feelings.
And
And
you sharing that story is pivotal for other people who go, I'm protecting them though. Like
yeah,
I'm saving them. You're not
yeah, you're
saving. You're
not.
not saving anyone
Yeah,
by not telling the truth. Now we don't have to go out there and be like, you know what? I wish that your whatever was bigger or smaller or what. Like, I'm not talking
yeah,
about that. Y'all, everybody calm down and get out of the comments and stop trolling. But what I'm saying is, let's be real about how we're feeling. It's like, hey, when you said that one thing about how I seem like this, it made me feel kind of weird. And I don't know what you meant by that, because I'm going to take it and spin it around and swirl it and make it this whole thing. Is that what you meant by that? Or I just want you to know that I was thinking about you today and I really love you. Is there anything going on that you want to talk to me about?
yeah.
And you go, what? What do you
What?
mean? Like Gen X's were like, talk about our feeling with who? Who are
Yeah,
we doing that with? We were not raised. And I thought, I really did for a long time. I thought that was a me thing. I thought, well, we were trying to look good in the church,
yeah.
and like certain stuff we don't
No,
talk
we did
about.
not. We did not talk about shit.
But Jesus was going to help you. He could
Yeah,
just tell Jesus. And
yeah,
sometimes you need to tell Sally and John.
yeah,
Maybe sometimes you need to get the therapist in there to talk about sexual abuse and verbal abuse and physical abuse, and to talk about the way it makes you feel that you're made to feel like you're the show pony. And are you really a show pony, or have you been trained to be the show pony? Does it,
yeah,
and then like kind of what gets mixed up in, I like to perform because I like to give something to somebody, and I was made to perform so that I would be so busy that I wasn't focusing on how I felt. I mean, those.
yeah. No, and it just gets real. It's very messy. The whole story is very messy, but it also is beautiful when you start to have these realizations, when you start to go deep and you start to unpack. And like, I have a really good friend that's going through a lot right now, with a very serious form of cancer, and is having all these really dark thoughts and questioning, and we don't need, like, I am very open. Like, I am definitely not religious. I'm very spiritual, and this doesn't need to be a religious conversation at all, but she is questioning religion, and she is questioning why, if there is this
If
God
there
that's
is a
above,
God, why are you letting
why
this
why
happen to
would
me?
why would this happen to her?
Right.
And I was like, what I believe is, and what, like, I heard a quote when I was in treatment. So I spent a summer in treatment, and the quote was, and this is not everyone, but it's like, mostly, like, organized religion is for people that are scared to go to hell, and spirituality is for people who have already been there. And what I love about spirituality is that you spirituality is within. It is literally you figuring out what is your truth. And again, I am generalizing, but a lot of times I think that organized religion is very comfortable for people who don't want to have to look at their shit, because it's easy to say, well, just give it to God, or just, he's got it. Like, it's out of your control. You don't need to worry about it. And
Or
I
that you
think,
don't have to work through a thing
yeah,
because you've let
you just give it.
go. I've handed it to him and now
Yeah.
it's his. And it's like, but there's all these
You have to be
feelings
able
that
to
we're
think.
having.
Yes. And it's, so my mom was very religious, and my brother and I were raised Lutheran. So we were raised Christian. My dad was, like, got the Catholicism beat out of him. He was an altar boy. Like, he was super. And when he started questioning things, and they were like, don't question that, shut him down. He's like, this is horseshit. Like, I just, I want answers. Like, it was an orange today and tomorrow it's an apple. And why? And they're like, you need to stop questioning this. And so he just, like, through his own self-discovery was like, it doesn't feel good when questions are met with like, this is not the way. And so that was his thing. And so by the time my brother and I were born, he's like, you do what you want with them. You know, like, I'll go to the main holidays, I'll go to Christmas and Easter and this and that. But, you know, I think when you go through a lot of really hard things in your life, you have a choice whether you're going to dig deep or you're going to bury your head in the sand. And I have family members that bury their fucking head in the sand. And, you know, unfortunately for them, I am the whistleblower. I am the black sheep. I am the one that is stopping all the generational trauma, and people are unhappy.
Congratulations.
People are unhappy about it. Thank you. And I'm like, I'm sorry that this makes you uncomfortable, but I've also been through hell and back.
And you're not going to have this go any further.
And it's not going to go any further. Exactly. So,
and you're
you know,
reaching out your hand to help other people,
yes,
so that
and
they don't have to let it go any further.
Sharing my story, it is someone else. It's giving someone else in the audience that is silent. You know, they're like, oh, wow, like maybe I have some power to start talking about it, or see a therapist, or even start journaling about it. But like,
you have permission.
You know, all of my music has always been like, I write from a place of healing myself. And it just became very clear, like a couple albums ago, that everything that I write is very seated in life and loss, like everything that has to do with what it really means to be a human. And it is just very, very centered around what we all struggle with. And I just like, I want my music to be, you know, from, yes, there are artists that are like, oh yes, I like mental health, or I wrote a mental health song. I'm like, no, this shit is my MO. Like, it is the heartbeat of all of my music. And my last EP, or the last album that I just released, was like all the songs that I wrote while I was in residential treatment. It's called
Talk to us about that. Talk to about making the decision to do that. I read somewhere you did 300 hours of trauma work at the Integrative Life Center in Nashville.
Yes.
And I was like, man, I can imagine there's a lot of work, but a little envious of having the opportunity to talk through with some professionals.
Yes. So it was the hardest summer of my life and the most rewarding. And
okay, so how did you decide to go, and what was that kind of process?
It was May of 2021. The Darkest Light is kind of the start of it all. So the album, The Darkest Light, it was during 2020. I had also before that taken a like 3 to 4 year hiatus from music. Like, I stepped off the music industry hamster wheel. It was starting to become very toxic. It's a very toxic industry. It's a very wonderful industry in some senses, but it's just not bueno. And I was finding myself traveling, touring a lot, and just playing to assholes in bars. And I'm like, you know what? I've done this for like a decade, and I need to take a step back and take a closer look at what my music is for. And I went on a like 2-week shamanic pilgrimage trip, yoga trip to Peru. And that is where I like really decided, I'm like, my music is for healing, and I need a break, and I need to figure out how to plug back in. And so when I started writing The Darkest Light, it was the notion that I had done all this healing work. I had been in therapy for so many years, and I was determined to really do that like deep layer of shadow work and say, I'm going to start celebrating the whole of me and not just the parts that I like. And so The Darkest Light is all about this notion of finding the love in the duality of us all. And so this dance between darkness and light, fear and love, and all of the songs and the themes that I was writing for, all of a sudden COVID hit, and the pandemic, and all of the political polarization, and like all of these things, these themes that I was writing for myself was happening at like a fucking massive scale. And I was like, this is so much bigger than me. And it felt like right place, right time. I'm like, this is the first album I've done in 4 years. And I was like, I need to record this, and I need to record this somewhere very spiritual and cool. And my partner, Mark, and I, like, New Orleans is kind of like our home away from home. And so I recorded it in winter of 2020 and 2021 for like, we went out there for 2 weeks and we recorded this album, The Darkest Light. It is an incredible album, but I was also in the middle of, I thought I would also try and quit smoking and also get off of antidepressants after being on them for 20 years. Like, I decided to do all these crazy things while COVID was happening because I
Why
am
do we
a
do that to ourselves?
because I'm a psychopath and I'm
Okay,
a
now listen,
martyr, and
that
like,
is not just you. I literally, my roommate and I just recently, I smoked for a period of time, and then I quit for 2.5 years, and then I started back up again because I needed to stay awake until 4 o'clock in the morning driving Uber trying to make money.
yeah,
And then I was like, okay, then I'm smoking again, and so I was like, okay, let's do 75. She said, let's do 75 soft. 75 days, and we'll pick a couple of things. And I was like, okay. So, of course, one of the things I put on the list, one of the things I put
yes,
is quit smoking. And
yes.
then other stuff. I was like, I'll start exercising, and I'm definitely gonna start drinking.
I'm going to cut out all the sugar. I'm going to stop drinking alcohol. I'm
like,
going to,
and I'm gonna solve world hunger.
yes,
And I'm
yes,
going to house out the
yes,
homeless, and
yes.
like
I'm
all
going to
this. And
become best friends
you
with
are
Deepak Chopra.
what?
And
Yeah,
yeah,
we do this too. I don't know why. And I was like, I just want you to know that I'm not marking anything down on the list. I quit smoking. That's it.
yeah,
That's what I did. I quit smoking.
that's huge.
Hallelujah. That's it.
Yes.
I'm not doing anything else until I can calm down from the fact that I did
Yes.
one
But
major.
that's such a huge thing. And actually that is the biggest, most proud thing I've ever done in my entire life. And this December, it'll be 4 years.
Good
And
job.
I don't even know how, but I am a crazy ex-smoker. Like, a lot of ex-smokers still really miss it, and they like hang out. Like, I'm like,
Yeah.
if I smell it, if you're near me, I'm like, get the fuck away. Like, it's weird, and I
Good
love
on
it, and
you.
I'm really, I don't judge. Like, I'm really, if my friends smoke, like, I'm not one of those people either. Like, I feel like everyone should be able to do their thing. I'm just feeling very grateful that
That's a
that
personal thing.
yeah,
That's a thing
yes,
for you. That's
yeah,
you making a hard decision. And they
yes,
say it's as hard as quitting heroin.
yes. Oh, more so. It is more
It's
like,
insane.
there are heroin addicts that like are like, dude, like, smoking nicotine is like far worse than
But if it ever does become good for me in the future, when
than
I'm like 85, I keep
yeah,
having to push the number.
yeah.
85, I'm going to drink all the alcohol. I'm going to
Well,
smoke
it's like
all the
when
cigarettes and
people
have all
get
the
into
sugar.
nursing homes and they start doing a bunch of drugs, and they start doing like LSD, and I mean,
Let's do it.
like, they're rolling, they're doing ecstasy. I mean, this is a
They're
real
getting
thing.
STDs because they're all
Yes,
going around not getting
yes,
pregnant, not using
yes. They're getting STDs, and they're doing raves, and yeah, rolling on Molly. So good, so good. And for real, like, look it up. It's definitely
I
happening.
believe it. I'm
Yeah.
saying it's everything that I
Why
want to do as
not?
an old person.
What are you gonna
Why
do?
the f-
Die?
not?
Yeah,
Let's go. Let's go. I've been trying
totally.
so hard to be good all my life. I was such a good girl, and still being accused of not being good, or
Yes,
being too much or being too whatever.
exactly.
Yeah, let me be bad at the very end if that's bad. I don't know.
Totally. But so yeah, so then
Okay, so you were in
yeah,
2020, you're trying to
so
do all these things for
trying to do all these things. I
yourself.
record the album. I the first couple months, so I've tried unsuccessfully like 5 or 6 times to get off of antidepressants. It's something that I wanted very badly for myself. And I've been on just some form of Lexapro or Celexa or whatever for like 20 something years, 18 years, 20 years. So, but I'm determined to do this. I think, I'm like, I feel I could go on this for hours. I feel both for and against psych meds. in the way that I would be for and against at an equal level of Kamala and Trump. Like that is how polarizing it is, because it has saved my life, but I also am trapped. I feel trapped because so I tried. I weaned off over the course of 8 months. The first couple months were okay. Things started getting really hairy around recording The Darkest Light. Like I was so scared to even be alone that like my partner Mark was dropping me off at the producer's house with the band to do like pre-production, and I started crying like I was like a kindergartner being dropped off. I'm like I am so scared, like I don't know how I'm going to like I am like I was really unmedicated. Like my brain, like none of the connections were right. I was having panic attacks. And this has happened multiple other times where it's like it was like an 8-month battle of just waking. I had to take a leave of absence from work. I was crying 30, 40, 50 times a day. I mean, I was a shell of a person.
I'm so
And
sorry.
it really was hard. Thank you. It got real hairy, and I was suicidal. Like I was just like, and I was working with my therapist, and she's like, okay, it's very clear. I was like once a week, then it was 3 times a week. And she's like, we need to go to like the next level. And she was trying to find like an outpatient program. We were living in Cincinnati at the time because the other thing that people don't know is that my partner, Mark, when we met in Nashville, he has 2 daughters, and I became a pseudo parent overnight to 2 teenagers. And that was a lot. I love them so much. Like, I'm so grateful they've been in my life for 8 years. And they are now 21 and 24. And I met them at like 13 and 15. But
Wow.
that was a lot of it too. The break in the music was a move to Cincinnati to be closer to them. They were living with their mom, and just, be more a part of their like daily lives and help get them out of high school. And so there was a lot of that pressure too, of just like, how do I fit in this family? And like, there was just like it was like this perfect storm of all this stuff going on. And so my therapist was like, okay, I feel like we should start talking about treatment, like a place where you could go, because I had been bringing that up for a while. I was like, I don't feel safe. I feel like I need to be in a like locked in a padded cell. Like I was very, very scared. And
Which is a very difficult place to be in when you're afraid of yourself.
yes, very, very much so. And then also worrying that, if I go someplace like this, what are the girls going to think? Am I less of a mom? Am I like, so there's like all this stuff happening. So there were 2 places. There was one place in New Mexico and one place in Nashville. And I knew we were moving back to Nashville. I also felt like there was a lot of like music trauma that I needed to rectify. I wanted to get back into music. Like The Darkest Light was kind of my homecoming album, and like stepping back into the scene, stepping on and being like, okay, I'm back, but my music has this whole new purpose. And so I checked into treatment in May, and was there for, I think, like 3 months. And it was programming. Like I did like a step down program. So I was in residential for like 45 days where you have programming 7 days a week. And it's literally like 8 a.m. until 7 p.m. And it was so fascinating because you learn so much. You learn surface of so much. Like you learn about polyvagal theory and family systems and cognitive behavior therapy and DBT. And like you're basically like a junior therapist by the time you leave, but you do all this role playing. You are in groups, and there's so many learnings that came out of that. But I realized how scared I was of my emotions, and I refused to feel my emotions because I have such big emotions as a double water sign, as a empathic, very sensitive, intuitive person. I feel the pain of the world. I thought my emotions were going to kill me. And I learned that this is a really, really cool stat. Emotions last in our body an average of 90 seconds. It's literally all emotion is it means energy in motion. And it, whether it's shame or guilt or sadness or rage or anger, whatever it is like it needs to just pass through you. 90 seconds, a minute and a half. If we were able to just let that ride, cry, scream, whatever, jump around, let it pass. Because if you don't, then you bury it. And it's almost like it starts growing mold and it festers and it gets bigger and bigger and bigger. And so basically my 300 hours of trauma was unpacking 30 something fucking years of trauma, of emotions that were squelched down. And, so I really learned that we all need to feel our emotions. Emotions are not going to hurt us, but not feeling them will kill you because, yeah.
I do also want to say something that I learned several years ago. You can't selectively numb. You
Nope.
can't decide, I don't want to feel sadness, so I'm going to numb sadness. If you numb sadness, you numb joy.
Yes.
If you numb, no matter what it is, I go down the list. I was going to list a whole bunch of emotions, and I was like, "Don't do that, Heather. Everybody knows emotions." Okay, but if you're numbing the parts that feel scary, the parts that feel icky, or just don't sit right in you, you are also numbing the euphoria, the joy, the happiness, the lightness, the overwhelming excitement, whatever that is. You're also numbing those things. And I've had times in my life where I've struggled with depression, but not in a chronic way. The only thing that has ever kept me, I mean, outside of, I'm sorry, I'm so weepy.
No, this is really important.
But the only thing that's ever kept me from really losing my stuff, like after I had my fourth child, I had to get put on antidepressants. And I initially told her I went to my 6-week checkup, and they give you a form to fill out to check you for postpartum depression. And I was like, wow, no, not that. Oh, hardly ever. And I thought I had filled it out so good. I was like, I am feeling super weird and my life is in shambles. But I filled that out so good, they will never know. And she came in there like this. Heather, I'm looking at your thing. What, do we need to talk? And I was like, but did I check the wrong box? I couldn't
Did
figure out
you
what she was talking about.
subconsciously fill in all the right ones and like you thought you were filling in like the good ones?
I thought,
Yeah.
like, I mean, I said I was a little sad. I lied about the suicidal thoughts. I lied about the felt like harming others. I
Yeah.
lied about all that. Like, it couldn't
Yeah.
have been that bad. And she was like, let's think about going on some antidepressants. And I was like, oh my God, listen, I am still talking to my friends. I'm sharing my feelings. I am telling people, I am having a hard time. Like, there's a lot of stuff going on in my house. And yeah, like, I'm totally fine. And so then I go 2 weeks later with my son, my fourth child at 40 years old. And I go in and I got mad at the receptionist or something. I mean, I absolutely lost my shit on the receptionist or someone. And so some other lady comes in and she was like, "Are we okay, Mom?" I go, "Is the doctor coming or is that not what we're doing today?" And she was like, "I will get her." And I was like, "Thank you." And I wait and the doctor comes in and she was like, "Hey, Mom." And I was like, "Well, finally." She's like, "Are we okay?" And I was like, and I burst into tears, told her everything that was going on. And that woman, she called me for 4 days in a row until I filled out that prescription. Because she said, you need a little bit of help for a little while, and this may not be forever, but you need a little bit of help. So
Yes.
let's take a little bit of help. Now, I did take that little bit of help, and I was on antidepressants for 18 months, and I slept 18 hours a day, and I gained 50 pounds, but I stayed alive.
Yes. Yes, and that is the big, so me wanting so bad to get off, and my rationale, I was like, well, I still had depression and anxiety while I was on it, but I wasn't suicidal.
Right.
I wasn't literally fighting for how I'm going to make it to the next minute. How
Right.
I'm going to make, like,
Like
I
where it
woke,
feels so unbearable. I can't stand the
it's like
idea
crawling
that
out of
I'm
your
going to
skin.
live this way. I have
Yeah.
to live in this existence where I'm hurting so bad and it
Yeah.
feels so overwhelming. You're going to just make me live. I can't just live like this.
Yeah. No, no. When I checked into treatment, it was, I worked so hard to get off of those drugs. And I also was convinced by like crazy spiritual people that like it was killing me and that this was poison and this and that. And so I had I met with like a holistic psychiatrist before I checked in, and I had a step up plan. So it was like, there was drug A, drug B, and drug C. Drug A was like these natural homeopathic medications like SAMe and like different things that help raise the serotonin level in your brain, but they are not psych meds. The step two was lithium. And she's like, a lot of people are very misinformed with lithium, in that people, like doctors, prescribe absurd high doses of lithium where you need like a quarter, if not an eighth of that degree. Lithium is what is it? Not a metal. It's whatever it is, it works really well with our body water system. And so that was like step two. And then step three was to get back on an antidepressant. And the first couple weeks that I was in treatment, I was rocked. Like I was so effed. And they were like, let's try this. Let's go to this. They're like, you're going to have to get back on. And it took every bit of my willpower to get back on a drug that I spent 8 months clawing up a wall trying to get off. I mean, that was such a mind fuck. And I also am like, if I don't, I'm going to die, because I cannot, like, I can't function. I
Okay,
am,
so what would your advice be at this point? And I don't know how this turned into this. I had a feeling. I'm not going to lie. I knew this before. I said this is going to be so very little about music, also about music, but
no,
so
but
very little about
it
music. But
absolutely is about,
it is. But especially because of what you're planning on doing, or what you're doing with your music and how you write your music, and
yeah,
your plan for your life coaching and all of that, and how you're going to help people, or how you help people. But
yeah,
I now I've lost track of what I was going to say. Um, okay, what advice would you give to someone who's really struggling? I mean, there's side effects to taking these drugs.
yeah,
Whether it's anxiety medicine, and our world is plagued with this because we are living in a weird fucking world.
yes,
We are trying to talk people into talking about their feelings, and yet there's a lot of behaviors that we're not addressing that people are out there doing, and you go, well, don't talk about that thing, because, well, we're not going to do anything about that.
yeah,
You've got women going, I'm not actually going to date anymore. I'm not willing to procreate with you. I'm not willing to marry you. I'm not going to help you raise. Like, there's all these things going on. Then
yeah,
you add social media. Then you add the amount of information because of social media and the internet, all these things.
and
All
misinformation,
and,
and
and and
yes,
then yeah, and then people are a lot like, we don't know
yeah,
what the truth is. We just believe everything that we read on Google, and all these things are happening. Okay, so then no shocker
yeah,
that anxiety is an all-time high, that depression is an all-time high.
yeah,
Yeah, no shit. We know too much.
yes.
What would you say to somebody who has been told the drugs are going to kill you, the drugs are going to make you crazy, the drugs are going to make you fat, the drugs are going to make you tired, the drugs have more side effects than they help?
Yeah.
What would you say to those people?
So I think what's really hard, and I think what we struggle with as a society, especially the US, is that a lot of these drugs, we're all very unique individuals, right?
Right.
And, you know, it takes like a lot of times, like this drug, any drugs, any classification of drugs, cancer drugs, psych meds, like anything is not a one size fits all. And there are people that will have crazy reactions. There are people that will have no reactions. I feel like as a society, we are pill happy. We like to just, pop a pill. The first thing, the first thing we recommend is get on a drug. I wish I was never put on this drug. I really do. I feel like there are things that we can try first. I think that medicine helps a lot of people, but I think as a whole, it shouldn't be the first thing that we reach for.
Okay, what's the first thing you
I
would
think the
suggest?
very first thing that we should reach for is speaking to someone. So I think getting into some form of therapy, talk therapy. I think that exercise is sorely misunderstood in that there is so much good to exercise that really helps with mental health and anxiety, depression, trauma, all that stuff. I think that the next step I would maybe look into is, yes, are there medications that you could go on? Are there other practices like yoga or breath work? There are
the sound, what did you call
sound, music healing. There, I feel like, medication should definitely be in the periphery, but not the very first thing. Because in my case, I'm sorry to say, I think that the majority of my problems are from the medication, period, end of sentence, because my brain does not know how to function without this drug in my system. And, I think they were saying that, if I were to try and get off of it, I need to wean 1 month for every year that I was on it. So I'm looking at least a 2-year wean, 2 years to get off of this. And there's still no telling that, there could be significant damage, whatever it is. But I also know that it is keeping me sane. It is keeping me balanced. It is keeping me level. I've gotten into conversations with people where they're like, why would you fight it? If you had cancer and you needed medication, why wouldn't you take it? And I'm like, because I live in the balance of somewhere between the homeopathic world and the Western Western world. I think it's unhealthy to be too much of both. I think that I've gotten into a lot of trouble just hanging with my spiritual woo-woo friends that don't have any fucking idea what they did. They are just like, do this, take this wormwood root, no, you don't know. And you could really hurt someone. You could really hurt someone for real. And part of me,
I didn't mean to laugh about that. I call it the voodoo that you do.
It's comical because part of me needing to get off this medication so bad was a belief system that wasn't even mine. It was on this trip to Peru where they're like, it's fucking poison. You need to get off this. You will die if you don't. And so I have this belief system running me into the ground that I need to get off this medication that maybe I didn't need to get off of. So I really do. I am very much in, a balance of needing to be attached to both worlds. I also think when it comes to therapy, I am a big advocate of somatic therapy. Somatic therapy is everything that is body work. Sometimes the traumas are embedded so deep in our body that we can talk it through for 30 years and not even make a dent in it. Somatic therapy is breath work. It is yoga. It is there are therapies called EMDR, brain spotting, where you are getting at a much deeper level. You are getting at a subconscious level where you are working with wounded parts, little parts, inner child. We have this symphony of people that live within us that are all fractured parts of us that really run what we're doing day in and day out. We think we're 40 years old running a board meeting, but really it's an angry little 16-year-old that's got the floor. And we wonder why we're flying off the handle. But somatic therapy, I just did 6 months of this thing called CRM. And it was so incredible. But it was basically an hour and a half where it was listening to binaural beats that were going back and forth. It was getting almost like hypnosis, but I remember every single thing that happens. And then the therapist is walking through questions, talking to different parts. I have a set of 2 5-year-olds that are like kind of broken. There was a 7-year-old, there was an angsty teen, and like and then speaking, it's wild because in this therapy session, the voice that's coming out of me is young, is like I can hear it, and it's literally like a 5-year-old sobbing, a 5-year-old talking about why she doesn't feel seen and why she's scared, and like she had something really horrible happen to her, and then her parents made her keep it the family secret. And like the 5-year-old doesn't understand that, and there is a 5-year-old in me. I'm an adult and I'm very capable of running my life, but there is a 5-year-old in there that is causing problems. And a lot of times when we're feeling overwhelmed and really sad, like these are all the little wounded parts of us that are coming out. And so somatic therapy has been proven to, like, one somatic therapy session can be equivalent to like months of talk therapy. And it's also wild too, because you'll have muscle, like there's like trapped energy. So like for every somatic session I have, there's a shitload of energy. I don't know why, it's in my arm, and like the whole session, like my arm is just like lightning. And it's so, I think that's a really long answer to, there are so many things that we can do when we are struggling. I think the first and foremost thing is to hook up with a professional. And I think what's really cool and interesting about me going into life coaching is to know who to go to and when. Because life coaching, while it's awesome, is dealing somewhat with a whole person, someone that is more on the healed side, and is helping set goals, helping, to like release some limiting beliefs, but you're working with the now forward. Whereas therapy is very important if you are dealing with traumas, if you are dealing with, they're looking at a lot of the here and back. And so as a life coach, like I am like sworn, like it's been embedded that it would be irresponsible of me to work with someone that needs a therapist. It would be, we need to stay in our lane. And I also got certified as a peer recovery specialist, which allows me to work with trauma and care teams. And a peer recovery specialist is someone that has experience in either addiction, mental health, and has a ton of training where we are working with the peers. And someone also has a psychiatrist and a therapist and a peer specialist. But it's really just like, this role is so cool because a lot of times, like the people that are working with peer specialists, they are much more likely to open up to someone like you, because you've been there, you've been through it. You share kind of that commonality of like, we both have substance abuse. We both have, we both know what it likes to be suicidal. We, and me or whoever's the peer specialist informing the care team, everyone has their role to play. And it's almost like a care team is like different facets of a crystal, and they see different things of, if you were the client, then you're working with a peer specialist, you're working. And a lot of times it's so hard, it's so hard to get in to see a psychiatrist or a psychologist, that, there's a lot more peer specialists now where it's like, if you need to see someone, like whenever you're in dire need of some help and you call up and they're like, yeah, we can get you in 3 months. No, motherfucker. Like, I need something now. Now. Like,
I've never understood that. It's like, okay, so if I get a cold in January, I should let you know now. Okay.
Yeah.
Thanks.
But I think it's just like, I don't know, it's even worse in the mental health world, where it's like, and going to the ER, going to the psych ER is a Band-Aid. It's literally, you'll be there for one night and then you're still stuck in the same position. So peer recovery has been a much bigger thing that has come into play, where you're able to go to these peer centers or work with peer recovery specialists. And it's almost like an interim that, you know, we have enough of the training to be able to pass that along and be like, okay, we can get you a little bit further, and then you can start working with therapists. So what's cool about those two things is that I get to utilize these two parts of my brain. One is where I get to dig into the, you know, more of the mental health and the trauma side. And then the life coaching is where I get to, you know, deal more into helping to, you know, the whole thing about life coaching is that, or any therapist, like, they're there to guide you, but we all innately have the answers in us. We are able to solve all of the mysteries of the world. And we, a lot of times, especially now, we reach outside of ourselves so much for answers, and we have all of them. Like, we just need to go inwards and spend way more time asking ourselves what is right, because no one can tell us what is more right than ourselves.
Right.
Like, I don't care if you have a quadruple PhD and you've been through this, like, I know myself better than anyone knows me.
Can you give me a line, a special lyric or a song in your most recent work, I Love You, Keep Going, Part 1, that when you wrote it, you went, or it did some healing that you weren't anticipating?
Yes. So there's 5 songs on that EP. It's all songs that I wrote while I was in treatment. There's a song called Inside the Surrender, and I'll do a tiny quick little story. It was like 3 days into being in treatment, and I wanted nothing to do with it. I like had to, we didn't have our phones or anything. I had to convince my therapist to get my partner Mark on the phone. And I was like, I need to come home. I need to come home now. This place is not for me. And he was like, of course you can come home, honey. Like, you know, but I feel like I should stay and try and through this. And it became very clear to me all of a sudden that I was like, if I go home, I'm still trapped in my brain. Like, I'm still a prisoner, and so I need to just stay. And that's when I really learned what surrender is. And you reach this moment, it's like rock bottom, where you're just like, I need fucking help. And so the line at the end of the chorus is, inside the surrender, we learn what to keep and what to let go. And it's like, you have, when you're healing and when you're in therapy and treatment, you have all of these blankets that are on you and weighing you down, and you start to pull like belief systems that aren't yours, and you start pulling everything out, and there's this moment where you just feel like empty and there's nothing there. And that is the best place to be, because then you get to start rebuilding it. And so that lyric is all about taking a like inventory of everything, every belief system that we've ever had, because a lot of what we carry around are old belief systems that are from 20, 30, 40, 50 years ago. And so you get
somebody else's belief systems,
or somebody
probably,
else's
as well.
belief systems. Yes. And so you get to take a look at it and be like, this no longer serves me. And so we choose what we keep and what to let go. And then there's one more, like the bridge of the song These Days, which is probably one of the most truthful, melancholic, sad songs that I wrote. It's really about like being suicidal. And the bridge is like, my heart feels a little heavy these days, feel like I'm falling, will I ever feel okay? And the song continues to go on. I think one thing about my songs that I will say is that I've never written a song that just falls flat on its face. Like, even though there are really heartbreaking moments, there's always a moment in the song that is like a silver lining. And so that song, you know, it's very depressing, but then it goes into like, and so we go and push on through the flames. We find that one little spark in that moment of darkness where we like learn that we have a lot more strength than we thought we did, and there is a sense of resilience.
True
But
grit.
the bridge is literally about like a lot about my struggle with addiction, and just wanting to leave this world. So it's it's a really beautiful ballad, but it is a very heartfelt song. And it is very much about me wanting to not be here and then finding the strength to stay.
So, what is the silver lining for where you are today?
The silver lining for where I am today is that I feel like my music and everything that I've gone through in life has almost been like when life imitates art. It feels like I would never take anything away that I have experienced because it's made me who I am. And I feel like all the pain I've been able to channel that pain and turn it into something beautiful and turn that pain into power, and that the music that I write is it's almost like that song These Days, I wrote it in one sitting. Like it just, I feel like it was channeled right through me. Like I sat down and I wrote the song and I was like, and we're done. Like I wrote that whole fucking song in like maybe 15 minutes, 20 minutes. And that does not always happen. Some songs take months. Some songs I'm still working on, but that one specifically, it was like I went through some real hard shit, and this is what needs to come out, and this is the message, and this is who it's going to reach. And I think that the silver lining is that I get to share everything that I've learned with others that, you know, are experiencing it. And it's to let people know, like, you are not alone. And as much as the world likes to tell you how fucking weak you are, if you struggle with an addiction or if you struggle with your mental health, those people are the strongest people that I've ever met in my entire life, because they are confronting something every day, every second of their day. And the resilience that it takes to deal with chronic pain, to deal with an addiction, to deal with mental health, to deal with trying to be, you know, the generation trauma breaker in your family. Like that takes great strength. And it also is very brave to ask for help, because I think, you know, so many of us are not okay, and it's okay to not be okay.
Amen.
So,
all right, we are going to slightly shift gears. I have a set of rapid fire questions for fun,
okay.
for those that love you and want to get to know you better. And these are like the really hard hitting questions that we're going to get to. And we are going to start with what would be your most ideal vacation? It could be a place or a thing that you do, or both.
So I am a travel whore. I wish I had way more money to travel. But I think
Don't we all?
it would have to be, on the beach, but it would probably be somewhere like really exotic. So I'd love to go to like Seychelles, like outside of like South Africa, or somewhere like Turks and
Not
Caicos,
commercial.
or not commercial. No, somewhere really, really like the Mediterranean.
Okay.
Somewhere like that, but it would have to be a beach, because I am.
Okay. Favorite
Yeah.
concert that you've ever attended, and for whatever reason, and a concert that you'd like to attend?
Favorite concert that I ever attended. Probably seeing Bjork at Radio City. She's just super magical, and that was awesome. And then what was the second one?
Somebody that
One that
you'd
I would
like to
like
see
to.
that you
Oh,
haven't yet.
I am a whore for Hozier. I love Hozier. If I ever was able to, oh my God, I didn't even notice that. It, like, if there was one person that I could co-write with or have a duet with, it's Hozier. Like Hozier is my man. I love him. He is so, oh my God. Yeah.
We saw him, me and my roommate saw him not this past weekend, but the weekend before in Nashville at the Pilgrimage Festival. And seeing Hozier was like a religious experience.
Yes.
He's so incredible. The band was incredible. They had a cellist who also played the guitar. I think there were 6 backup singers at one point. It was phenomenal. Why he wasn't headlining, I don't even understand. But it was so good. It was so good.
Yeah.
So
No,
okay.
he's amazing.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I want to see him more, and I've been trying to see him, but anyway, finally, that's the one. The most overrated holiday and the most underrated holiday.
The most overrated holiday is Thanksgiving.
Okay.
I think I have struggles with Thanksgiving and 4th of July just in this country. I think that
It's weird.
it's kind of fucked up. So, the
And
most underrated holiday I think is my favorite, which is Halloween. I think that everything should be Halloween. My partner and I were life partners. Like, he's been divorced a few times, and we've talked about it. And, like, that we're probably not getting married, but I always said that if I did get married, it would be like on Halloween, and it would be some sort of a vampiric theme, or just like I love Halloween. It's
awesome.
amazing.
Okay, a weird food combo that only you enjoy, and or um something that you feel like everybody should try, or that you think is amazing.
I did try a lot of those weird TikTok things where it's like take a pickle and wrap it in a fruit roll up, and
Okay.
those weird things. But there is something that I make that it's not weird, but it was like an Eating Well magazine thing, and it's become like a family staple now for the past 5 years. But it's basically like um, panko crusted cauliflower and this like curry mayo dip, and it's so if you just Google curry cauliflower Eating Well magazine, you will find the recipe for it. But it is like crack. I have
Okay,
to make like
nice.
3 heads of cauliflower for the family because Morgan, the younger one, she's like you just stay away from her because she will inhale the whole thing. But it's very delicious.
Okay, that's fantastic. This is like a second recipe that we've gotten in our episodes, and there's only been 5. Um, Personality pet peeve, or something that gives you the ick.
um, Lack of communication. Communication is so big for me. Like, if you ghost me, if you just ignore texts like for weeks at a time, like that, just it's like nails on a chalkboard. I can't deal with that.
Feel that. What is the kindest thing that anyone has ever done for you?
The kindest thing that anyone has ever done for me.
Or it could be something the kind that they said. It doesn't have to be something that they did. It depends on what
Yeah.
your love language is, really.
I mean, I feel like my partner in what I was going through when I checked into treatment. He just, we have 2 dogs, but I had one dog at the time, and he rocked it, and I can't imagine. I mean, I would be, but I can't imagine being on the reciprocal end of someone that was struggling so much and just holding all of that together for the whole family while having a full-time job, while dealing with, all that stuff. So I think that just everything that he did for me and just the strength that he held while I was falling apart was one of the kindest things.
I've got "I need a hero" in my head. Sorry, I had to let that out. What are your words to live by?
My words to live by. Um, I I really do think that, like, having a grasp on all of our emotions is the key to happiness, to celebrate like every part of ourselves in totality. um because I think that the thing that time and time again like almost took me away many times from this planet is not feeling those emotions. And so it is my mantra, like I feel everything.
Feel
So
it all.
feel everything. Feel
Love
fucking
that.
everything.
I love it. If I needed to hand a song to somebody and say, "This is Sara Syms," what would that song be? It has to be of yours, of course. But what would that song be?
It's so hard. It's so hard because my music is it is a duality. I tend to write towards the more atmospheric indie folk side or the like Southern Gothic gritty blues. So I'm going to give you two
Okay.
because I
I'll
think
take that.
like it really, so,
Or
I
maybe there's
think
duality to you.
it's very, yes, my whole brand is all about duality.
Hmm.
But if you were going for more of a gritty folk blues, and I'm talking about like, it's kind of spooky. It's kind of like lots of minor chords and stuff. There is a song called Real Bad Low that I think is a really cool song that kind of taps into that side of me. And then if it's on the other side, I'm going to go with a ballad, because I think that, and I play guitar, but I feel like the songs that I write on piano are just so me. So I'm going to go with a song called Good Times Never Last. And it's a ballad. It's really beautiful. And it's the notion about that liminal space when you are really sad and missing someone, but there's also the silver lining of all the memories that you have.
Fantastic. Sarah, thank you so much for taking a chance on some stranger putting out a thread randomly on a whatever night that was right before a hurricane, not the hurricane that we just had, but the hurricane
Yeah.
before that.
Yeah, the 2 week ago hurricane, because
Yeah,
there's a
yeah,
hurricane every week.
apparently. I really appreciate your time. I feel like this was so therapeutic. I
Yes,
really
I
was
agree.
anticipating that it would have um
Energies match.
yeah, I was like, I feel it already before before we go in. I kind of anticipated this is exactly what it would be, so I'm glad I didn't disappoint myself.
Yeah.
Even though it wasn't just me that was here. So thank you for being a part of making that
Yes,
happen.
absolutely.
Thank you so much for giving me
No,
your
thank you. This was,
time.
yeah.
And I hope that in your future endeavors that you continue to find the silver lining of your life, that you find yourself on the top of more mountains, and that when you are in the valley, that you know that that's not the end of the story, that this too shall pass, and that you continue to encourage others to share and feel and emote, because you have realized something that we all need to realize, that feeling is everything. And let's
Yeah.
just do it. Let's sit with it. Let's be with it. It was such an
Yes.
important message. I really do feel like the listeners are going to have something. I mean, if you're crying, I'm sorry. You need to cry. Like if you cried through
Yeah.
half of this, I'm sorry. I'm gonna have to put a trigger warning because we talked about a lot of really serious things, but for
Tears
heaven's
are
sakes, let's
so
have it.
healing. Tears are very,
Just
very
do it.
healing.
Just do it. If you had to cry, give yourself a hug and take a bath and just let it wash all over you like rain.
Yes. I
Oh,
love
gracious.
that.
All right. Thank you so much, Sarah. I wish you luck in all the things you do. Let's connect at some point when I come back to
Yes,
Nashville.
please. I would
I'll
love
reach
that.
out. I'll reach
Yes,
out.
I
All
would
right.
love
Thank
that.
you and have a
All
great
right.
night.
Thank you so much. You too.
All right.
Good
Bye.
night. Bye.